We're recording. Mm, good. Okay, we're recording. I'll edit this out. Anyways. All right, so we're bringing you a special edition of the SMT podcast. I have Caleb with me. We're going to stick to one subject with this podcast. We're going to talk about a new device that is hitting the market. This device is the Motorola One 5G. I really don't like the name Motorola One, unless they plan on naming the next one the Motorola 2 or the 3. I don't know. But this phone is going to be I guess we'll call it their entry into the lower priced 5G devices. So they dropped the Moto Edge Plus earlier this year, which is a 100% flagship high-end premium smartphone. That phone retails at like $1,000. And then you have the Moto Edge, not the Edge Plus, the Moto Edge, which comes in a little bit more affordable. I think it's in at $699, possibly. I do believe that uh, there have been some kind of flash sales at $599 or something like that, but for the most part, that's kind of been the lowest price point for a 5G phone. It's been $599 or $699. We've seen $799, $999. We've seen Samsung coming in at $1,000 and $1,200 and $1,300. So they've been expensive. This will likely be Motorola's effort to get 5G in a smartphone under $500. And as of right now, that's all we know for pricing. So when it comes to this device, I wish I could give you the MSRP, but I can't. All they keep saying, and that's every single outlet, whether it's The Verge or Droid Life or Android Headlines or whatever, all these different websites, they're just saying under 500. So that's probably all that Motorola is telling them. In terms of availability, Caleb, it is coming out soon. So as vague as the price is, under $500, they're giving us the soon title on the availability. And it will be available only at two carriers. Do you know those two carriers?
Probably AT&T and Verizon.
There we go. So T-Mobile out of the Moto One 5G business, apparently. No indication that it'll be available unlocked. So I don't see Amazon getting thrown around. I don't see Best Buy getting thrown around, unless Best Buy has it through Verizon and AT&T. But as an unlocked model, Best Buy won't have it. Um, that's actually kind of a bummer. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But let's go through these specs. Display, the most important part to a phone for most people because they're staring at their display. 6.7 inch, so it's large. It's a full HD display, so you're getting 1080p. 90 hertz refresh rate. 10, what is this? HDR10 support. You familiar with that technology?
Yeah, it's basically the same technology that's in your TV for high dynamic range.
Cool. Good. Well, I like the sound of that. We like that. I mean, could you tell a 6.7-inch display phone if it has HDR10 versus not having it? Is that noticeable?
I mean, it works pretty good when you're shooting just still photos. For example, you can turn on your HDR when you're taking photos. Um, it I mean, I do notice a difference, but I don't use it all the time.
Gotcha. So the display actually seems pretty nice. It is LCD. So I think that's where one of those little shortcuts are, when it comes to the bargaining. Not an OLED. We like OLEDs. I love OLEDs.
HoloLens.
That, to me, the rest of the display technology is actually pretty nice. Full HD, 90 hertz refresh rate, HDR10, and then the LCD is kind of a letdown. Maybe it's not for some people. I know that's kind of a negative in my book. So
Motorola loves that 90 hertz refresh
that's
rate.
like the new thing,
It is.
I know OnePlus is doing it too, but they're also doing theirs on OLEDs. So
Right.
I don't know. Let's talk processor now. Qualcomm Snapdragon 765G processor. That's a nice processor. It's not the best. It's not the A series. It's not the A65. But I mean, it's the next best thing,
Yeah,
right? So
it'll
you're
get the
either
job
getting an
done.
A65 or a 765.
Mhm.
With the storage, 128 gigs on board. That's nice. It's got expandable storage, SD card slot, 1 terabyte, up to 1 terabyte.
That's good.
4 gig of RAM. Where are you at with that, Caleb? 4 gig of RAM.
I prefer at least 6. I know a lot of mid-rangers are at least doing 6 at a minimum, including the upcoming Google Pixel 5, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, what was the 4A?
6
Was that
gigs of
6?
RAM.
It was
Yeah.
6, yeah. So
Mhm.
point taken there, yeah. We like 6. 6 gigabytes
Yeah,
of
we
RAM.
like 6. I agree. I think that's one of the that was one of the shortcuts they took with this phone to get it at whatever this price is going to be, sub 500. I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
I think the other part is the display. Coming in with an LCD display, a little bit cheaper than an OLED. But I mean, they did add the 90 hertz, so I think there's like some pretty obvious trade-offs there.
I think these phone manufacturers, what they do is they have this big old whiteboard, right? And they say, okay, where can we cut corners? So display, okay, check.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
RAM, check.
But there's parts about the display that are nice.
True.
So they it's a lot. It's like the tug of war, right? We're gonna push from this side and pull on the other.
Hence the warm big whiteboard.
Yeah, the big whiteboard. I like it, man. Good analogy. 5,000 milliamp hour battery capacity. I love it.
I love that too. We see that the 5G devices, they'll eat up the battery, right?
Yeah.
Especially with um, the Moto Edge Plus that has the 5,000 milliamp battery. It's amazing. If you're looking for a mid-range phone with a long lasting battery, this will be the phone to get.
They're doing 15-watt turbocharging. What they call Motorola's Moto turbocharging. It's essentially 15-watt fast charge. It's going to be close to power delivery. Like, for example, Caleb, I think your Moto Edge Plus does 18-watt
Yeah.
standard power delivery.
It's either I have to check the specs. It's either 15 or 18, but it goes pretty quick. I don't have any complaints about that. It goes pretty quick. So
because that capacity is big, right?
yeah,
That's a large battery, so you're gonna want some form of a fast charging mechanism there.
right.
So battery size, we're giving it an A. The charging seems to be adequate. 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. I love it, man. It's good to see that's still around, even though it's on these mid rangers. It's hanging around, man. It's hanging in there.
Moto loves the headphone jack. Hashtag headphone jack.
Yep, we're gonna hashtag that, man. It's making a comeback. NFC is on deck. Bluetooth 5.1, Android 10 for the operating system. So it's got the up-to-date OS for now. The minute that Android 11 comes out here in the next month or so, that'll be outdated. If I could speak to the OS and the updates, I would assume this would get probably one major OS update. It'd probably get
Maybe
like
2.
3 or 4, security patches a year for the first couple of years, and then it's probably going to be abandoned. So
Yeah, I think there'll be 2, but still, that's another cost cutting effort.
yeah, yeah, because you got to pay somebody to upgrade these softwares and get them out there.
Yep.
The 5G capability is there, right? We got the Qualcomm Snapdragon 765. So here's where things get interesting, and I know a lot of people like camera specs. So 4 rear cameras. It's got a cluster of cameras. 4K video at 30 frames per second, 1080p video at 60 frames per second. So it's built to standard, for the market. So it's not going to be like a potato, and it's going to do everything that all the other cameras are doing. 48 megapixel main shooter. It also has a macro sensor. It has a wide angle sensor and a depth perception sensor. So it's going to give you a system essentially for taking photos and doing video that, as long as the Moto camera software holds up, it should be decent. I'd have to test it myself to make a conclusion, obviously, but I would bet if you were able to somehow, some way port in the Google camera app, I
Right.
bet these cameras would perform well.
Oh yeah, I'm assuming it does like image stabilization as well.
I think it's got optical and electric, or optical's the physical one, right? And electric's the one that does the adjustment through software.
I believe so.
Okay, yeah, I think it's got that. But not all of them are probably OIS. I bet you the main shooter is.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
2 front cameras. Here's a cool feature: integrated fingerprint scanner into the side power button.
That's really interesting. Usually they're either on the back of the phone or in the display. Um,
The in-display, I assume, was going to cost them too much.
right.
With they want to make money, obviously. So I'm not surprised that it's a physical button as opposed to under the display. But what do you think of that placement and kind of the integration into the power button?
I actually like it. It saves some smudges on the screen.
It's true. It's true, man. The oleophobic coating always lets us down, man. The
Hmm.
I remember the Sonys used to have this feature, the
Yeah, yeah.
Xperia devices, and they took it out, even though it was built into the hardware, and they locked it in for only the Japan usage.
Hmm.
It was really, really weird. And I never understood how more manufacturers didn't use this feature. Like if the iPhone did it, they would say they innovated, or
Yes.
or if
Yes.
yeah, like why doesn't the Google, like the Pixel has they've always done fingerprint scanners on the back,
Correct. Like, yeah. Yep.
so save yourself the additional hardware in the back, build it into that button, two birds with one stone.
Exactly.
Like you don't have to create an additional spot design language to fit a fingerprint scanner. Boom, you got it built into the button. That's a nice piece of tech.
Yeah. More room on the motherboard for
Sure.
stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that, they fell in love with the placement of the fingerprint scanner and everybody's like, "Oh, I love this." Well, what better place than where your thumb has to be to turn on the display?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, now pretty much all the phones do that, like wake, tap to wake on the
Mhm.
display. Or I remember, do you
Double
remember the
tap.
Motos with the infrared sensors? You'd wave over the
Yeah.
display.
Oh my
Oh
gosh. Yeah.
man, the glory
that was
days, bro.
awesome.
The glory days. Yeah, speaking of Moto, man, they've always had amazing features like that. I've always loved
Yeah.
it.
True.
Um, let's talk a little bit about this carrier availability, because my channel, we focus a lot on the cellular and modems and chipsets and things like that. So for carrier availability, AT&T will have it first, and all they gave us were the quote soon end quote. So they'll be the first ones to get it. Who knows? That could be a couple of weeks. That could be a month. I don't know.
Thinking probably this fall, maybe. That's what I'm
Maybe.
thinking.
Maybe it comes in after the Pixel phones. I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, sub 6 gigahertz 5G only for the AT&T variant.
Oy. Well,
So
this is mid-ranger.
yeah. So
This is a
even
mid-ranger.
even though AT&T is going to give everyone that's on the network access to their sub 6 and millimeter wave, their phones are not coming with millimeter wave access.
Right.
So they're forcing the issue with the sub 6. To me, it indicates that their sub 6 is on deck, like the band 2, the DSS, the whole situation there.
Right. Right.
To me, it means it's very close. So I'm excited about that, but I don't know, maybe it's cost cutting.
That's what I'm kind of thinking. I mean, it is. It is. It does cost a lot to put actually the antenna arrays. Well, I know it's for a fact the antenna arrays for the millimeter wave. You know, that does cost extra money because you actually have to use the antenna lines going from the motherboard out to the side of the phone on the antenna arrays. Those are actually bigger,
Yeah.
so it does cost more.
And there's more R&D, more
Hmm.
time, the
Yep,
manufacturing process. And from what I understand, the millimeter wave arrangement in and of itself is more expensive than the sub 6. So
it
both
is.
they both cost additional money, and the estimated amount that they say is sub 6 gigahertz 5G cost manufacturers $65 to $75 to add that feature,
Hmm.
right, to the for the modem. If you had millimeter wave, it's an additional $125 to $135. So
Yep.
it's essentially double. So this takes us over to the Verizon side, where they are going to have a unique, quote, unique model. To me, that just screams 5G ultra wideband.
They're
And
they're doing the exact same thing what they did with the Samsung um, Galaxy S20. The exact same thing.
exactly,
But my
exactly.
question for you is why can AT&T do that?
What do you mean?
Do what Verizon's doing. Have a unique model like that. I don't understand
Well, here's what's
why.
crazy, Caleb. The Verizon model doesn't have sub 6.
Oh no.
You
Okay.
see what I'm
Never mind the
saying? So
editor.
they're essentially like,
No.
okay, we're gonna swap the sub 6 for the millimeter wave access.
Click it can win.
And that's essentially my, I mean, I've got to do either a podcast or a video on this problem, because the
It's a huge
5G
problem.
era is going to usher in a generation of smartphones that's even more limited when it comes to network compatibility than LTE.
Yeah, I mean, with 5G, when I think 5G, I think both sub 6 and millimeter wave. For a good 5G connection, you want both.
Of course.
You want both. I mean, it's crazy how we've seen phones in the past that are excluding network bands, phones that are only sub 6, and now this is just an example of it.
You
I'm
know,
curious to know how you said earlier that it's not for T-Mobile. Does it include band 71 or
it
41?
does. It does. It does
Then
have band 71 and band 41 compatibility,
you can get that unlocked, hopefully, and put it
but
on the
not
network.
N41 and not N71.
Just the LTE.
The LTE, which
Oh,
N41 is what you need. You don't want band 41. That's a temporary, that's a band-aid.
that's a band-aid because we're not even doing that anymore, really.
Right.
Oh no.
And with band 71, I mean, in many markets across the US, there's more spectrum on the N side than the LTE side.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
This is this
cost-cutting
phone,
measure.
right? This phone this phone is turning out to actually, while on paper and looking at the specs, you're like, well, it's kind of compelling in a way. And then you start looking at carrier availability, like it's not for you if you're a T-Mobile diehard.
Right. I guess the moniker when you say, oh, we have this 5G, mid-range phone. Why call it a 5G mid-range phone when you don't include sub 6 or millimeter for half the stuff, and when you exclude, the 5G bands on some carriers? That doesn't drive
Caleb,
to me.
I'm starting to feel like a 5G phone for under $500 that's like fully 5G compatible is not possible.
Yeah.
I think 600 is the only way to get sub 6 and millimeter wave. It's got to, you've got to pay for both.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's starting to look like. I mean, look, man, I like hot dogs. I think a hot dog has to have mustard.
And it better be a ballpark Frank, right?
Right. So you get a ballpark Frank and you get your condiments, right? And mustard is a must. I feel like sub 6 gigahertz is a must. It's the mustard. But it tastes good with ketchup too.
Right.
So the millimeter wave's like ketchup, dude. So I want the fully dressed hot dog. I don't want just the mustard. I want the ketchup too.
And the relish.
Oh, now you're just getting crazy. What a horrible analogy, man. I'm terrible.
No, it's good. But we bring up a good point because it's just, we've seen different OEMs play this game of network exclusion when it comes to bands. But hey, they pitch this this 5G phone, when in reality, to get the both the sub 6, the millimeter wave to have it work on, all 3 carriers, you have to buy a high end phone. You have to spend the money to do it.
In terms of LT compatibility, rejoice. It's all there. Band 2, 4, 5, 12, 13, 14. It has 25. It has 26. It has 29. It has 30. It has 41, 46, 48, 66, and 71. So if we're looking at it from an AT&T perspective, we're good. You got the band 14, the 29, and the 30. AT&T has band 46 here in the CLE, the LAA, unlicensed spectrum. So that covers you there, kind of future-proof on the LTE side. For Verizon, you got it all, right? 2, 4, 13, 5, 66. Also, the 46 and 48 are used here in the CLE. For LTE, you're good on T-Mobile. The problem is the band 41 for LTE is going to be useless in a year, right? It'll all be NR by then, probably.
That was the 71, yep.
And then the 71, you're rocking with part of the channel, right? You're one side of the spectrum. So And in some cases, they, where T-Mobile owns or operates 15 megahertz of band 71, 10 of them are on the NR side. So this is it's a operate at your own risk if you're a T-Mobile customer. It's a go if you're AT&T and Verizon, if you're thinking LTE with some form of 5G. For 5G millimeter wave, the Verizon model, N260 and N261. So that gives you the 39 gigahertz on the 260 and then 28 gigahertz on the 261, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yep.
Okay. And this is going to be the X52 modem that's going to run the show when it comes to the cellular. And I mean, that's pretty much everything for the spec side of things. I mean, design-wise, it looks like all the current line Motorola devices. It's got the same design language. It looks good. It's fine. I'm just looking at it from this standpoint. $500 makes it the cheapest and most affordable 5G phone. You've got what I consider a deficiency in RAM, because instead of the standard of like today, which should be like 6 gigs of RAM, it's like 4, so it's a little bit less. It's going to run a pretty clean stock Android.
Yep.
So it's not going to be a bad experience. It's just not going to be, I think, as good as it could be. Right. So how much would it have costed them to add the additional 2 gigs of RAM? Maybe the price goes up to $549, but maybe the phone won't sell at $549. So I love the battery size. The display sounds okay. I'm not a fan of LCDs, but it's an OLED, or if it was an OLED, I think that would be better. The 5G situation's funny. The Moto Edge is $699. The Moto Edge Plus is $999. This is going to be under those two.
Yeah, I'm noticing with these X52 modems, they are made for sub-6. That specific modem is made, geared, tested for sub-6. I don't think the millimeter wave experience, even on Verizon, even though it has it, probably won't be that great as far as a higher end phone.
The competition for this phone is actually starting to heat up a little bit. Like the segment of the market, the mid-range 5G device.
Yeah.
The LG Velvet is being sold at AT&T and Verizon. I don't know if it's being sold at T-Mobile because I didn't find the pricing on it. So I'm guessing it is. I think they do. I'm guessing it's $600 at T-Mobile, like it's $600 at AT&T. Verizon sells a model for $700 because why? Millimeter wave. So you're paying the Verizon tax for millimeter wave access. Again, the AT&T and the T-Mobile variants, I don't think have millimeter wave. So
no, they don't.
Right, they're keeping them sub-6. So basically, if we're peasants, we're getting the sub-6 one on AT&T or T-Mobile.
Right.
LG doesn't have an unlocked variant either, dude.
No, they don't. And that's what I'm saying. Like, there's X52, which is made for sub-6. That's why I think they, when the OEMs, they kind of, collude, I would say, with the carriers.
Yeah. Actually, I want to talk about that, Caleb. That's an issue.
Yeah. What about the Nord? The Nord 5G.
The Nord ain't coming here.
Oh, that's right. There's only Europe phone, right?
I think it's Asian. It's like for an Asian release, like an India, China kind of situation going on there. I'm guessing probably Europe too. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Right. So the LG Velvet's coming in at $600 on the GSM. We'll call them the old GSM carriers, right? Verizon $700. Samsung A71 5G, same situation. T-Mobile selling it for $599. Same thing at AT&T. Verizon's charging $650. They're doing a promo right now. I think you can get it for $499 or something if you bring add a line or something. But like we got the Google Pixel 4a 5G coming up, which is essentially going to be this type of phone. Except I think it's going to have 6 gig of RAM. I think it's going to have an OLED panel.
Right, correct, yep.
It's going to have better software because of the support. It'll have the same 5G capability. Do you think it has millimeter wave?
For
and
Verizon,
sub-6?
Yeah. Well, hold on. I want to tell you why I think this. Why? It's because, so if you think about it, now if you look on Google's website, what was the carrier availability for just the regular 4A? only Unlocked and Verizon, right? Okay. So the 4A 5G is going to follow the same suit. It'll be available for Verizon. Just listen, hear me out.
I'm
It'll
hearing
be
you.
it'll be available for Unlocked and Verizon, but the Verizon variant will have the millimeter wave.
But not sub 6.
I can only get, I think it will have sub 6.
See, I can't wrap my mind around this topic. This is something that is really starting to really bother me. Okay, so
Verizon,
they're making us choose.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, because here's what's happening. The manufacturers of these mid-range 5G phones are essentially going to the carriers and saying, how would you like this?
Exactly, yes.
They're not saying, here's the phone, do what you want with it. They're saying, you tell us how you want us to do these antennas, and then we're gonna make it a sub 6 only because you want to sell it at $499, and we're gonna make this one millimeter wave only because you're gonna want to sell it at $599. Because in the world that I'm seeing, the only way you're gonna get a phone with both, you got to spend like $700, $800, $1,000, $1,300.
I think the Verizon variant for the Pixel, actually, I'll just go as far as the Pixel 5. I'll throw that will include sub 6 and a millimeter wave for Verizon.
But it's going to be $799.
True.
Like if you think about the pricing, it's going to be up there.
Right, but the 4A 5G, I think that'll also include sub 6. Here's what I think that's going to play. It'll include sub 6 and millimeter wave for Verizon. For AT&T and T-Mobile, sub 6 only.
Here's why I hope you're wrong.
I hope I'm wrong.
Here's why I hope you're wrong. I hope the Google Pixel 4A 5G is the same phone, one model, and it has both sub 6 and millimeter wave. I'm really hoping it is. Because we need an unlocked phone from the manufacturer that is both sub 6 and millimeter wave. I don't want to buy a phone from a carrier. I don't want it. Right. But they're not giving me an option.
Right, exactly.
Like the only phone I can say with 100% certainty that is going to have all forms of 5G, low band, mid band, and millimeter wave is the S20 line. And literally I have to be more specific, the Plus and the Ultra.
Right.
Or I have to buy the unlocked variant of the Note 20.
Right.
And we're starting at 1,000 and we're working our way up 1,200, 1,300, 1,400.
I was reading an article on I forget which source, but I was reading an article that the difference between the Pixel 4a 5G and the 5 is the building material. So one's more plasticky and one's more has the metal.
I think the RAM too. I think there's going to be 8 gigs of RAM inside the Pixel 5.
Possibly the RAM.
I think the RAM. I think the camera will be better. I think the type of storage will be better. Like the speed, the write speed, read and write speed, DDR3.
Right.
DDR4. DDR4.
One of the two. But I
also think the charging speed. I think I think there's going to be a few reasons you're going to want to get the 5 and not the 4A 5G.
Right. I am glad that Google is actually offering 2, as we see other OEMs like LG, Moto, OnePlus. They only offer just one kind. We only see Google offering, and along with Samsung and iPhone, but just Google, as far as like a good mid-range type phone, they're offering a lot of options to consumers at a good price points, and I think that's what sets them apart. That's what makes them, in my opinion, even the battery life might be as high as what the Moto has, but still, to have those options for the 4A 5G and especially just Pixel 5 for a kind of a mid-range-ish, under $1,000 phone, that's good for consumers.
If the Pixel 4A 5G has a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, it's going to last a day.
Yeah. Yep.
If the 5 has a 4,500 milliamp hour battery, it will last just as much, right? Because I think what's going to happen is they're going to use the same processor, but they're going to clock the 765G a little bit higher for the 5.
Yeah.
So if they clock, like, let's say they clock the 4A 5G with the 765G, let's say they clock it at 2.2 gigahertz, they'll clock the 5 at like 2.4 or
Right.
2.5 or something like that. So having the extra battery capacity will help a little bit and give you a little bit more battery life, or as good. Even though the battery is a little bigger, it'll be as good because of that, processor having to work a little bit more, being overclocked. I'm frustrated, man. I'm really,
Yeah.
really bummed out the way that things are playing out for this 5G compatibility. We're going to
Mhm.
see more of the same issues we saw with LTE with the carriers,
Yeah.
exploiting their bands for their benefit to force people to stick to their carrier for a certain phone, and
Absolutely.
buying phones, not making them interoperable. When Band 14 came to the market for AT&T, that made things more complicated for buyers. When Band 30 came, when when T-Mobile got Band 71, all these people had to upgrade, people had to change, and
Yeah.
these are costly upgrades. Some people don't want to upgrade every 2 years. They want to go 3 and 4. And to us, it's less of an issue, Caleb, because I feel as network tech enthusiasts, we're more than willing to make the jump every year.
Yeah. I mean,
Like you
you
just
kind of.
bought the Moto Edge Plus, like what, 4 or 5 months ago?
Yep, and the Pixel 4a and the S, the S. I got the S20, but plus, but it's just we kind of run our predictions and say, hey, this is, and we'll wait for a couple other OEMs to launch their phones to kind of give a good you know comparison of what we want in technology and as far as like network connectivity, battery, and screen stuff like
Yeah.
that. But it's just I agree with you. It's very hard for consumers, especially if for example, if they're having let's say, for example, if a customer buys I don't know, I mean you can throw out any, a phone manufacturer like a Verizon phone, and then say if they're not happy with Verizon and they wanted to switch for AT&T and it doesn't have band 14 or band 30 or what have you, they're stuck with that phone without that
Yeah.
capability, and it's
Yeah.
unfortunate.
The I dog Samsung a lot because I feel they're very, very expensive.
You know,
They're commanding more money than even like the iPhone. The
yeah,
top model iPhones are $999 and $1099. The top model Galaxies are 1300 and 1400. And
just wait till 6G comes out. It'll be 2 to 3 thousand.
but Caleb, where I'm going with this is Samsung's the only company that gave us unlocked models with everything. Like if you bought an S20 Plus or an S20 Ultra, you have every millimeter wave, every sub 6 gigahertz band. You've got all the LTE, you've got all the 5G.
They do have the unlocked variants, but the problem with those is that they're half the features in them don't work. So like the eSIM and some other stuff, that just drives me nuts about it. So
We can't
it's
win.
very hard. Can't win.
I think the only way we win this year, and you're going to hate this, and I
Pixel
hate to admit
devices.
it, is we have a hope for these last 2 Pixels,
Yeah.
and we have one more, the
Yeah.
iPhone 12,
iPhone 12. You can't
which
go wrong with iPhone.
but the thing about the iPhone situation is I've never had confidence in iPhones when it comes to RF and signal and
Mhm.
modems, because they've been relying on Intel for that supply for the last several generations, and it's been a mixed bag. And like I have an 11 Pro Max, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like the cellular performance, and I don't like the Wi-Fi radio either.
Right. Yeah, I do. My brother, I ended up getting him an iPhone 11. I noticed that when I fired up his phone. I do think Apple is paying attention to these OEMs and these mid-range phones and saying, how can we pack as much as we can as far as cellular connectivity, modem, screen real estate, and also price. Apple is doing a seismic shift on
Mm,
price, trying to compete with the Google, and the OnePluses, right?
yeah,
But they're doing it. They're doing it right now. Like they're doing it correct with this iPhone 12 launch, and I think they're paying attention. They know that customers, they know that they're going to want to pay a little bit more for the sub 6 and millimeter wave. But you know what? If they want it, they have it. They can get it. They don't have to
Sure.
the difference between Apple, the different OEMs, is if they want the phone, they can get it. They don't have to sacrifice between, oh, we just released one phone that only has half the stuff in it. Sorry, you're stuck with it, you know. And I think Google Pixel, providing the Pixel 5 has everything, they're in the same boat, except just a little bit better price wise. So I'm happy that Google and Apple are paying attention to the OEM. As OEMs, they're paying attention to the smartphone industry and realizing that people do want fast connections with sub-6 and millimeter wave.
Yeah, totally, man. I agree with a lot of your key points. You mentioned that. I'm just going to kind of cap this podcast off by saying this is a compelling option. In no way, shape, or form am I trying to tell somebody don't buy the Motorola One 5G. I think there's still a couple things we have to see, though. We have to see what the Pixel 4a 5G brings to the table and its price. And I think we also have to see what the Pixel 5 brings to the table. Because somebody who's willing to pay $500 may also be willing to pay $799. Maybe.
Absolutely.
Maybe. Now, the One Plus 8 is $699. So if they don't like either of those options, like the expensive Pixel and then the 4a 5G, they may revert back to the One Plus 8 and say, well, maybe I can even get it on a deal for my carrier. But by the time this happens, by the time this phone comes out and the Pixel phone comes out, or the Pixel phones, and then the iPhone 12s come, you will have a full assessment that you can make. I know you'll be at the end of the year, but you will have everything laid out on the table. Every phone manufacturer will have dropped. There's nothing coming out after the iPhone. That's it, right? The iPhone and the Pixel, and then the year's done. And then everything's going to be the January, February buildup of CES and the Consumer Electronics Show and then the whole like Samsung S line. That's all 2021. So, yeah. I mean, if you're a mid-range person, if you're in the market for a mid-range 5G phone, you make your assessment after we get the iPhones and after we get the Pixels.
That is why that's one that you brought up a good point, but that's actually why I waited to get my Pixel 4 XL. That's why I waited, so long, because I didn't know what the Pixel 5 chipset one was going to be. I know that my LTE speeds are faster with the Pixel 4 XL than Pixel 5. It is. I get 1.2 gigabytes and 300 on the up. The Pixel 5 can't do that. So it's sometimes it's painful to wait sometimes, but if you know what the phones are going to bring, you know what you can get, and you can base it off your needs. If you want something with good LTE speed or good connectivity, or if you want to just try the 5G stuff.
All right. Well, I think that's good. I think we covered the topic pretty well. We'll see what those phones bring to the table, and we'll cover it. Maybe we'll do another show, just you and I, Caleb, and we'll go through everything and see which phone turned out to be the best this year and what could work for people. So if that's something you all want to see, let me know in the comment section of this video. If you want to see me and Caleb do a roundup once the iPhones and then those Google phones come out, go ahead and let me know in the comment section, or just give this video a thumbs up, and we'll know that you want to see more from the two of us on this type of coverage. That pretty much wraps this one up. I'll just add this little bit at the end to let you know what's all happening with this channel. Thank you all for watching, and we hope to see you soon on the next podcast. Peace.
Peace.